So this is it. All right, we are live.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, guys? Welcome, welcome,
Hey,
welcome. If you haven't joined us before, my name is Marcello. I am joined by my brother from another mother, Tyler's Eclectic, and Justin, the founder of AmpsandSound. So welcome to both of you, and I'm excited to see you both. How you guys doing this evening?
Justin.
Fantastically, actually. Got a nap in before we got to see each other tonight.
Naps?
Wise.
What are those?
Wise.
So I left work early, went home, took a nap, ate some dinner. Here we are.
What'd you have for dinner? Anything delicious?
So the wife and the munchkin went to the in-laws so that the house is quiet, and
Nice.
there's a sandwich shop near my house. I did a 22-hour fast, and so I had
Woo!
I tried for intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
trying to find a thinner me.
I do intermittent
I
fasting as well.
think we all do a little bit of fasting, yeah.
It's the
So
way.
I did a
This is the
barbecue
way.
tri-tip sandwich and I did basically 2 sandwiches, which is not what I should have been doing. You're supposed to eat a small meal after you fast, but the cookie counts.
True.
Good for
True.
you. That sounds delicious. How are you tonight, Tyler?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty spicy. I also got a nap, a short one with the daughter. So I'm with Justin here. So feeling a little refreshed, a little more pep to my step, as they say. How are you, Marcello? How's things in the
doing
world of?
pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I got a workout in today in my freezing garage. It was like 36 degrees. Put on some soundtrack from Rocky IV and just Sylvester Stallone did in there for about an hour and a half. It was wonderful. So yeah, I'm having a great day. So
Está bien.
yeah. How's everybody out there in the world of YouTube? Chime in with some comments. We are happy to have you all with us.
Well, it looks like we got a bunch of people in here. Hey, we got Andres, we got Mocha Mark. We got a bunch of people in here. Nice. How's everyone doing? BP
Yeah.
Carb, Quinn, how goes it?
What's up, Mocha Mark?
Yeah.
How you doing?
So I wanted to ask real quick, Justin. I think I mentioned it real briefly. I started calling this the naughty list instead of the Nautilus, Christmas related, but also because it's just such it's like a very the epitome of tube amps. Like, so what's the sorry, I don't want to jump on Marcello's thunder
dude.
here.
Teamwork, baby.
Sorry.
Go for it. What's up, Quantum? I'm checking in with the chat anyways while you're doing that, so it's all good.
Oh, gotcha. What was the what was the reasoning behind the Nautilus? What brought you to the Nautilus? The story behind that a little bit.
Sure, I can't say that it was good intentions, sort of. All of our amps had been up until exactly, but all of our amps up until that point were built on wood chassis, aluminum top plates, because we used to long ago hand drill all the metal chassis ourselves. My hands are completely steady. However, I can't drill and produce repeatable drill holes even if they're laid out correctly. The human hand is slightly imperfect. So that's why we went to the aluminum top plates and the wood, and it became our aesthetic. But being a believer that bigger transformers matter most, you will bow the living nonsense out of top plates of 1/4 inch thickness or thicker if you're putting more and more weight on them. And we normally use circuit boards because it provides for repeatability, serviceability, simplicity, and wiring. It's a good manufacturing technique, but it is not the essence of what I think the highest order, greatest effort in amp building should be. The greatest effort in amp building, from my perspective, is use of turret boards. So turret boards are like circuit boards in a sense that you have to you fix mount all the capacitors and resistors to these boards, and then you wire everything to it. And there is a elegance to that that's really amazing. However, it's super labor intensive and is not easily done in tight quarters. And so to build an amp that was, am I allowed to cuss on this, or or we refrain from that?
It's your call.
If one was to make sort of a, this is my statement piece, mic drop, expletive in the middle, the Nautilus was intended to be that. It was to say, this is what our greatest capacity is. And to do that, I couldn't do it on an aluminum top plate. The closest approximation to that is the Bigger Ben. Bigger Ben uses the same output transformers, but it's not hand wired using turret boards because it takes up a lot of space. It's a more complicated build process, takes 3 times as long, all that good stuff. And so we turned to metal fab, and the chassis of the Nautilus you can actually stand on with 200 pounds and you won't deflect the chassis. It's a 10 gauge steel plate.
And I can attest to this, to the based on what Marcello's told me about this thing. I think it took him all day after his workout to get it where it's at right now.
It's a heavy amp for sure. It's definitely a lift with your legs type of situation. And it's definitely one that you want to make sure your stand is rated to hold, obviously, with it being such a valuable, beautiful looking and sounding audio bliss. You don't want it to obviously crash. So, but I would imagine, as Justin said, the majority of the weight is in those transformers, correct?
Yes, 100%. It's 68 pounds outside of its Pelican case, 98 pounds in the Pelican case. It's a heavy deadlift. But the Nautilus is just wide enough to fit on a normal sized rack, so it'll always fit inside someone's high-end equipment rack if they wanted it to. But Absolutely. It was sort of intended to be an absolute statement piece in that, for a lot of people who really covet headphones, they're left listening in closets and things like that, and I don't subscribe to that idea. So the Nautilus was sort of the statement piece that was intended of, I listen to personal audio, and this is the thing that I'm proud of. This is my value statement in this product. There's no secrets about it. There's no hiding it. This will dominate a space. Marcello, your lens is great. It just doesn't quite show the size, but it's a big,
it's a beast.
Almost 20 inches wide, 18 inches deep. It's a big thing. And so if you put it on a credenza, it will be the thing that is noticed, as it should be. Where you listen to your audio is your own personal special place. And I don't think that all too often we're told to hide it.
Here's
not the hide it version.
Here's some scale.
This is the opposite of the hide it version.
So here's some scale for you, okay? There's a Bifrost 2 to give you an idea,
Yeah.
okay?
Not a small DAC.
That's an iPad Pro to give you an idea. These are beautiful AudioQuest cables. Just got a shout out to AudioQuest. And this is the Nautilus. And this is a huge desk too, by the way, that I have here. It's much bigger than it looks on camera, and it's taking up a very large portion of it. But it is a statement piece, but it's a beautiful statement piece. This, living in my living room, 2-channel audio area where I listen to relax and listen to my speakers, as well as I have, a couch there that I can plug in and do headphone listening. It is gorgeous, especially with the KEF LS50 Meta that are also in white. I mean, they just together look, just stunning. So you accomplished a beautiful statement piece for sure. Now, when you made this originally, you set out, was this a personal project for you originally, right? For you to have the uncompromised best quality sound of what you wanted and you enjoyed, and then then it became something you offered to the general public, or how did that work exactly?
So it was, I have some really loyal customers. There were some people who, if I dream it, sometimes they say, yeah, I'll sign on to it. But taking on the metal work, transformers and circuit were pretty straightforward. There was less than 100 hours of work in going into the dual monoblock, getting the circuit right. But the metal work was a production, an absolute production, because we initially did all the metal work in-house, like on a Hammond chassis, and then we hand it over to the metal company, and then they digitize it all, and then they produce a proof, and then we have to size everything, make sure, validate it, and then getting it into production correctly, and then into finishing correctly. And somehow we've had bloopers where like holes weren't in the right places, and then they had to be recut and then refinished. And it was a process. Anytime you learn a new technique, it is a longer process than one would expect. And so the only way it was justifiable was it's what I wanted. So like I have a set, like my Zion monoblocks were sort of the first of going to the metal chassis. And those went actually much smoother and easier than the Nautilus. The Nautilus was sort of like pushing a rock up a hill. But the Zion showed us like what we could do when we had enough space underneath, to not to have things crowded, and to the way the Zion is laid out and the Nautilus is laid out, it's something that a voltmeter and 50 years will still be able to service. And it gets harder to do that if it was really tight and compact. You'd have more thermal failures and things like that. So long story short, I signed on to building it because I wanted to, and I thought I'd sell 3. So the first production run was 3, 1 for me and 2 for very close customers. And then it worked, and it worked really, really well. That said, only like the first 3 are in Chrome, because the chroming process has proven to be really, 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 really arduous.
I imagine
getting things back from chroming correctly is I've not been successful. Like out of 9 attempts, I've gotten three back from chroming correctly.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably one of the more challenging things. But I mean, it's exceptional. You've done well with it aesthetically. To me, it's beautiful. And what is really gorgeous about it aesthetically, in my mind, I teased it a little bit in the opening video, and then from the last, is also the way the tubes are positioned on the chassis and the way they glow and reflect off of the metal. In fact, we should probably turn it on for people to see that, huh? So it's gonna get warm in here. So basically, that
Turn
to
the
me.
lights down low, Marcello.
Yeah, I will. I'll get it real.
Let it warm up. Let it warm up.
I'll get it real sexy in here in a minute for you. So basically, like I like to just, honestly, I might have just a tiny bit of light from one of my Hue lights in that listening room, just so I don't trip on something or whatever. And then I just have the glow of this amp while I'm listening, and it is so stunning. Like it's like no other tube amp I've ever, seen or heard, for that matter. But especially with a visible glow and the way it puts it off with the white, because the white also, I think, white is a color that adds light back in and reflects light back instead of eating it. There's my photography lesson for you for the day, everybody out there. So it reflects the light back, and then with the metallic, it's just well done. It's super gorgeous, super gorgeous.
So the idea, well, and what we've done now is we actually have different colors. So we try to stick to the matte chrome on the top covers, but we've done a pastel blue now, signal orange, white, and black.
Cool.
And those are
I
all
like the
kind
white
of
a
fun.
lot.
I mean, if I was buying it, the white would be my top choice right now. I think it's really nice.
Aesthetic.
With the contrast between, and then you even see the details to the volume knob. You know, like the contrast. You know, as a visual artist, I look at things, simple things, right? The metallic, the white, the contrast, the metallic of the two bottoms. It all comes together from an aesthetic design perspective in a really beautiful way. It's just gorgeous, man. I mean, I don't want to ever send it back, to be honest. But I know I have to eventually. But it is amazing.
The Nautilus's idea was that it was an integrated amp for headphone users. So, like in my own system, I have a turntable, a preamp to manage, and then I have a digital source coming in as well. But it gives me my 5 impedances on the front of the amp, so that is the primary focus. But then there's a switch in the back so that I can go active with my speakers. So I either mute my speakers or don't mute my speakers. And it's pretty for the speakers I run, which are 96 dB efficient. It'll rock the whole house with them all day long. And then I can go back to being this highly specialized headphone amp instead.
Absolutely.
So that you don't have to have two different systems, and what you have is kind of a purist approach for both.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not a fan of switches.
No, yeah, for sure. I get it. We have a question from one of our best buddies of the channel, as well as from our audio forum, Elnrick. He has a question. He wants you to touch on the Nautilus topology a little bit. Any feedback in the system? How did you create, whatever you can share with us?
Sure. So the let me see if I can plug it. That's better. The ZMF pendant has a little bit of feedback because it's an ultralinear circuit. You can't get an ultralinear circuit to be stable without it. So it's triode strapped and ultralinear. That's how you get the power, but the sweetness of sound. All AmpsandSound amps have no feedback. So they're single-ended, triode strapped, no feedback. So, and we use generally 5K primaries on the primary of the output transformer. So with a 5K primary, the general thinking is it's never about power. We don't really chase power. We really try very hard to chase low noise floor, wide bandwidth, because so all the tubes, if we had made them pentode or tetrode strapped, they would have more noise, but they'd have a heck of a lot more power. With headphones and with high efficiency speakers, it shouldn't be about the power delivery per se. It should be about bandwidth and noise. And so those are always our biggest goals. So it's an input stage into an output. It's a 2-stage amp. One of the bigger takeaways, and I don't think it's really unusual, is that like our power supplies I call very American, in that it's inelegant and it's a brute force attempt. So it's a lot of capacitance, excessive, silly amounts of capacitance, and really huge chokes. So no active regulators. It's not our idea of a good time. So there's no active regulation of the circuit.
It's an all-American
really just
muscle
big
machine.
caps and big inductors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a muscle car or truck, whatever you want to create the analogy. This is a classic, all-American, powerful muscle car. This thing is just incredible. Well, and I'll touch on it since you touched on it a little bit too. I listened to the KEF LS50 Meta with these. And those are inefficient, right? Those are like 85 dB, so they're not very efficient, speakers. However, they still sound absolutely magnificent with this. Now, maybe the low end isn't quite enough to drive those, but you mix in a small subwoofer for those, and I mean the staging, the width of the stage with those speakers, which already stage really beautifully, and the depth of the stage and the layering and the imaging, just everything goes. And it's the same thing from headphones. It just all becomes so enveloping, so natural, and so lifelike that you are there, like you're at that concert or that venue or that recording studio, whatever it is, the track you're playing. It is the most lifelike, seductive amplifier I've ever heard. It is just incredible. In fact, I had a family member, one family member has had the pleasure of listening to this amp. Nobody else in my family is geeky like me about audio except for one family member. Shout out to Bill. I love you, buddy. And he came over and he said this was the most incredible sonic experience he's ever had in his life. And he grew up in the 60s and 70s when music was the greatest. So, and he's a guitar player and he's very familiar with tube amplifiers and playing the guitar. And, you know, he was here for 3 hours. Like, he was here for 3 hours, and I just
lost in the music.
I put him on Rune, and I said, "Have fun." And I just kept handing him different headphones, and he was just in audio heaven. Like, he loved it, and I mean, obviously, that's the way I feel about it too, as well. So, one other question.
I would, if I could just.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Or can I just add something? So when you showed me your room, I would say like your room probably wouldn't have been an ideal pairing for the Nautilus with the Kefs, but like the room I have, which is like 12 by 10, not a big room. The
You're
Kefs are like
100%.
perfect because you collapse or how to say it? You reduce the volume of the room by 75% just by like our room sizes are like 75% different in size. Now you won't pressurize the room, but what you get with these small studio monitors like the Kefs most apparently is like imaging.
Oh my God!
And
so good.
What you get with the Nautilus, in my opinion, is intimacy and tone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so when you pair the two in the right space, like if you just put it into like your studio right there and turned around, you'd be like, holy moly!
Oh yeah.
Like
my speaker room is bigger, and the reality is you're spot on, because when you're listening to speakers, you're actually hearing like the room. 60% of what you hear is really, maybe 70 is what the room is, what you're hearing, and how the reflections are taking place off of the walls, the floors, the ceiling. So yeah, so my room is a little bit tougher for that perspective, but even with that being known that those are somewhat inefficient speakers, and because my room is larger, sitting in close to this and still listening to it, it's bananas. It's so good. It's so good. So I mean I'm in love with this amp for sure. So okay, real quick before I forget. So I have a bunch of questions that were sent to me from some of the awesome people that follow our channel and Tyler's channel, and that are on my Discord, and they're just friends of ours. And how did you get into this? Did you play music when you were younger? What brought you into this hobby? So we can get to know you as a person a little bit too, Justin.
Sure. So I played clarinet for 8 years, tenor sax for like 4. Growing up, my parents had an amazing living room. So it was like this vaulted ceiling that was a 20 or 30 foot vaulted ceiling where it was domed, and it was a rectangle. And we had the typical Technics turntable, Pioneer integrated AR speaker kind of setup, but it was pretty magical. But one of our close friends had a set of Magnepans, and so I grew up listening to Magnepans. I grew up in a place called Hancock Park in LA. And there's a theater called the Wilshire Ebel Theater, which is a really famous theater in LA.
Absolutely.
And so we had season tickets to their concertos and their classical performances. So I grew up listening to live music at the Wilshire Ebel Theater for 10 years of my life. Once a month, most months, that kind of thing. Fast forward to being sort of a younger adult. out of college. Yeah, I grew up with gaming systems and like wanting really loud surround sound systems. I don't really count that as well. I mean, like having pro audio and surround sound while playing Doom or things like that.
It's fun though. It is fun though.
Fantastic experience.
Oh yeah, like playing like Worlds of Warcraft at like 2 a.m. and having like pro audio amps and like, you know, set up in the room, you know, like 2,000 watts into a single room.
Leroy Jenkins
was pretty cool, but having equipment that was always either becoming obsolete or was pretty easily broken, and then sort of learning about Dynaco stuff and tube amps and transformers, and just sort of believing that that was a better, like I came from having old cars. I loved, you know, like I'm a found on road dead kind of guy. You know, I'm a diehard Ford guy. And being able to fix something matters to me. You know, being able to understand it and fix it. And with integrated circuits and solid state devices, I felt disconnected by that. And, you know, you either buy it or replace it. Where with tube audio, it wasn't about buying it and replacing. It was like, no, you can fix it. You can understand it. You can fix it. And in partnership with a whole bunch of, you know, some very good friends that became good team members, you know, we started building known designs and changing one aspect at a time. And that progression of 15 years of doing this is our house sound. It's our methodology, you know, that we've come up with using these parts or wiring it this way, because having built 5 or 6 slightly different ways for one design concept, as an example, we believe that this is the better choice. Either it's more reliable, wider bandwidth, quieter, or is more durable.
I love it.
You know?
Taryn, we got to say what up to
thing,
Taryn real quick. It's his wife's birthday, so he just stopped in to say hello. Taryn from headphones.com. Love you, brother.
Cool.
Thanks for stopping by, man.
And not to get, if you guys have noticed with my naming, everything's sort of tongue-in-cheek. Like my title of the company is Chief Mensch.
That's awesome.
But if you guys know what a mogwai is, which is a gremlin before it gets wet.
Yeah, of course.
That's a tube amp. As long as you don't dunk that shit, it's going to keep working.
That's true. I love that name. That name is
my Boston Terrier's name is Gizmo, so I'm
It's a classic movie, and only, you know, we grew up in that time period, so that's just, yeah, classic. I love that name. Now, is the Kenzie?
Well, that's like if you the other product was the Lilu from Fifth Element.
Okay. I love that movie too.
I picked up on that. That's one of my favorite movies, Fifth Element, man. I've watched that 1 billion times.
I love it. So basically, all of the different names have some sort of a meaning to you, one way or another, basically.
Yes.
Either from a movie or somebody
in culture kind of thing.
So Kenzie's my daughter. The Zions. So having grown up in LA, having been a child in the Southwest, I really, really love the Four Corners region. And so Zion is always like top of mind of one of my favorite places to be. The Nautilus, so the Sulio, so let me go back up. So you have the Kenzie, which is my daughter's namesake, super awesome, little pistol of an amp, which is what she is.
That's awesome.
And then the Kenzie and the Mogwai.
Wait, you know these fields too.
The Kenzie and the Mogwai were made. I used to make amps for horn-loaded speakers, which aren't very different in what they want versus headphones. So they want really quiet. They don't need a lot of power. It's all about tone, quiet, bandwidth, all of these things. And so the first stab at building a headphone amp was the Mogwai and the Kenzie. And, that's why the jacks are in the back rather than the front, because it's how, if you were building a 2-channel amp, you kind of conceptualize things. And everybody's like, you did this wrong. Love how it sounds, but you should change some things. And so me being stubborn gave them the Encore, which was sort of saying, okay, I get it. I give up. I give you what you want. Here's the Encore, which is a better version of a Kenzie. It's slightly bigger. The ergonomics make more sense. I still love the Kenzie. I think it has a lot of value, and it is the closest thing to me as far as what I consider like house sound and conceptualization of value points, like the things I think matter. But the Encore was like, I get it. This is how this should be better. So that was kind of the concept. And then the Ovation is like, take a bow, F you, I'm done. This is like, it can't go further. This concept is
the destroyer of others.
Been pushed as far. Well, no, it was just sort of like short of making it bigger, like putting even bigger iron on it. The Ovation really is the best version of a Kenzie.
Hmm.
And so that's why it's like, you have the Kenzie, you have the Encore, and then it's the Ovation. If you think sort of like performances when people get called out, for the callback.
Yeah, I love your naming concepts. So
I like it a lot too.
Okay, so I had to go switch my camera back on. Did I miss the Nautilus, the naming concept for the Nautilus, or how did?
So the Nautilus and the Sulio are me being inventive in the middle of the night. So the Sulio is like a Kenzie circuit, which is a Darling circuit, and it is Italian for like of the earth. And so, what is a good foundational sound? What is a wholesome, full, basic and sort of basic building blocks, basic sound? And so that was Sulio in Italian. It's like, okay, that makes for a monoblock Kenzie, Sulio, makes total sense. The Nautilus was sort of an adage to Jules Verne and 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Awesome.
I shared that in the SRAF.
Yeah. It's not a torpedo, but I mean, it's a lot of steel involved in it.
For sure.
And I think it transcends you to a different place. The Nautilus, as much as any of my amps, is the greatest expression of intimacy and tone, in my opinion. Its tonal weight is more than you would imagine to be proportional for the performance. So it's pulling you closer to the performer.
100%. Yeah. It's
which kind of dovetails into one question. Like people ask me, do I think soundstage matters more? I tend to tell people that I think intimacy matters most and tonal balance matters most. Almost all tube amps, the reason why you're choosing it from my perspective is that you're wanting a mid-range dense sound. And what my amps endeavor to bring you or do by happenstance and design choice is that we give you intimacy. So this is sort of a philosophical question, but I don't think headphones do staging well. I think
not compared to speakers. Yeah, no.
Yeah, definitely not compared to speakers.
Right. And I like big horn-loaded speakers that can do like 120 decibels and pop an eardrum. So I don't seek soundstage and scale always from headphones. I seek intimacy and accuracy in like the tonal balance. I want it to feel lifelike, and I want it to feel close. And I think that the thing to be known as you move up the food chain in the amps is that you may get different features per se, but what you're always trying to get is closer to lifelike and more dense.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most lifelike sounding amp I've ever heard, for sure. And I mean, it's still, like, for instance, with a Verite, you still have a very, it takes the three-dimensionality of that headphone and makes it even more three-dimensional. So if you do enjoy, say, the staging of some headphones and the three-dimensional sound, the Nautilus takes that to a whole nother level. There was a question I had, I didn't want to forget, because Sleepy's also a really good homie of ours. And let me see here, I got to go back and find it. It says here, well, actually, I think he probably just answered that question. He had said, sonically, what are some of the first things you aim to have your customers notice first time listening to the Nautilus? So it sounded like tone, intimacy, a naturalness, or like anything else you would add to that? You kind of answered that.
I mean,
Yeah.
so people are always sort of taken by just how much more information they gather from the amp, and as long as I've done it now, I think I'm a little bit more normalized to it than I should be. But our amps feel fuller and more incisive with like micro detail than you would have expected. There are things on tracks that you hadn't heard,
Yeah.
and nuance, not just like nuances, but like whole, whole downbeat sections, whole
Oh, yeah.
aspects of the composition that might have been smeared before are much more in detail now.
I
And I think that
yeah,
that's an interesting
I agree.
that's an interesting aspect of it.
But the thing is sometimes too, what makes it even more interesting to me is sometimes you'll find some amps will show you all that detail, but they will show it to you in a way that feels digital or forced. Whereas the Nautilus
Mhm.
layers it to you so elegantly. It's just like, I mean, it's like a full body massage for your ears. I mean, it's just like it's getting everything in there, but it's just doing it in a way that is so pleasing. It's hard to
Well,
describe. It's pretty incredible.
so,
One of the things I
so
always
I
think.
can give you sort of an interesting. Oh, go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, and I was just going to say that for me, I've always found that tube amps have always been that they seem to fill in. I always call them fuller. They have a fuller sound than anything else because they flesh out and fill in all the empty space that solid states don't seem to provide. Right? Like it just has a je ne sais quoi. Like it just everything seems to be more grand. Everything's a fullness to the music where before, if you haven't heard a solid, or if you're coming from a solid state to a tube, that's always been my experience. It's always been like it just feels more full. It feels like everything is in its right place. It has a grander stage. It has a for headphones, grander stage. It has it has better imaging, better detail, with the tonal balance. Usually, depending on the tube amp, of course. Where it has it, yeah, like Sleepy says, like the layering, the depth, the width, everything just seems to just meld perfectly together with tubes, and it's just a more enjoyable experience than I would get with the solid state, from my
So I
experience.
would bring up so that there's two things that people ask, and I'll tell you sort of. I guess this is how design and sonics kind of converge. I don't believe in OTL designs for myself because I think that headphone impedances have wide swings, and having an OTL be well behaved outside of its specified parameters tends to be more difficult. There's an example.
Mhm.
Um, and our amps are cathode biased, which makes them really easy for tube interchange. Had we made them so, cathode biasing is a way of managing the power tube, right? But had we gone to a fixed bias scheme, you'd have a much more authoritative bottom end, and it'd have a slightly more forward lean to the presentation. Um, and then in testing and in our own, from our own philosophical standpoint, which then was informed by our testing, it's hard when you have a great deal of analysis. Um, your time to be able to participate in that event is smaller. And so I think the tube amps, and our tube amps is a really good example, give you the capacity to listen for more than 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 6 hours. If you can't listen to your equipment for 2 to 6 hours for whatever reason, it's really the wrong choice for you, from my perspective at least.
Amen. I mean, yeah, no, spot on. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
So though I would say like our transformers try very hard to they go really low. They go to about 12 hertz typically in circuit. They go to above 20,000 kilohertz. We try really hard for an emotive experience rather than an analytical experience. If someone is
Wonderful.
choosing an analytical experience, I appreciate it. I think that there's a place for it. I don't know that we're always the best choice for that. That's not what we endeavor for.
I'm on board with that.
But what I would say though is like I don't want people to think that like your amps don't provide all the information though either, because they provide the information.
Oh, I would.
better,
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
You know, just
Yeah,
not in
I
a,
just
not
meant,
in a,
though, that,
not in a
like-
way that feels forced is the difference. You know, it's
Right.
It's so well done. What is okay? Another back to you question. So I'm going to kind of sprinkle these in here. So what is some of your favorite types
Sure.
of music? Like what do you like to listen to? And then like when you're at home chilling, just unwinding, relaxing, what do you a lot of people in our hobby we like to roll amps and choose one amp one day for a certain type of music or a certain mood we're in. What are your favorite music pairings with some of your favorite amps?
Sure, I'm just bringing up my rune. It tends to be a better report of what I've been listening to
That's great.
than myself.
It was you that made me get Rune. You said, "Dude, you need to get Rune," and I said, "All right, dude, I'll get it." And
I
then
begged you,
I got
yeah.
it, and I was like, "Oh God, what have I been doing? I should have had Rune months ago, years ago." It's awesome.
Well, Sam Rosen arm twisted me into it, so like I understand. Um, I don't try to change my system very often anymore because it's involved. It is a total pain in the ass to change components. In my room, to do a partial change at the level that I want it executed, because like I don't play willy-nilly with wires. Like everything is fully dressed in its place. So I'm a believer in like everything has a place and everything in its place. And so if it is all my power cords are the exact length they need to be, and if they need to be longer, then they get replaced with one that is longer. I make a new one and I put it into the system. So I don't play like I'm me making a change is a total commitment issue because I have to really want to participate in that change. I tend to not have as much equipment as I used to, in that I hate having surplus equipment. I would much rather it go to a friend on loan or to be given to somebody on a crazy good deal, because then it's being loved and enjoyed. Shit sitting on my shelf is it's kind of a vanity project for me. Like I don't enjoy it. I don't think it's fun. I have 3 dedicated systems, and I have a small cabinet with 2 or 3 extra pieces of equipment, but I don't fiddle if I can help it. I try to actually sit and listen to the music, and that's way more fun. Like sitting on I don't sit on my couch, which is here. That's for other people typically. I sit on my floor crisscross-legged with my iPad and Rune, or if I'm trying to be really diligent, I have 2 great turntables, and I pull out 5 or 6 records, and I try to be really good about letting the whole record play through before I change the record.
I love that.
All right, so things I listen. My Rune most played stuff is the Essential Paul Simon. I love Paul Simon, like probably my favorite artist. I used to love.
I'm a big fan of Paul
Bruce
Simon too.
Springsteen.
That's awesome.
I used to really love Bruce Springsteen. I'd say Bruce Springsteen used to be my favorite artist, but then I came to this revelation that I think most of his albums sound the exact same. Like lyrics are different and lead and melody is different, but if you listen to it, it's like listening to. They just sound too similar in a lot of ways. Like his new album sounded like one of his older albums, and kind of moved past that. Paul Simon. Reason why I like Paul Simon is that he takes world beats and he takes really good lyrics, and he puts really good lyrics to world music. So I'm a big fan of world music as a genre, but then having sort of the American lyric underpinning, or the anchoring of the American lyric structure against world rhythms is why I like Paul Simon.
I like that.
Allman Brothers,
Yes.
Dire Straits, the Lumineers, Nora Jones. I love Vampire Weekend, Father of the Bride.
Very cool.
Paul Simon, Rhythm of the Nation, T for Tillerman.
Oh, T for Tillerman's a
Graceland.
great one. Oh,
Yeah, Graceland's one of my favorites.
Mumford and Sons, Wilder Mind,
Mumford and Sons.
Tron,
Tron.
Born in the
Yes.
USA. Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd,
Yes.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, Stadium Arcadium,
Yeah.
Van Morrison, Joni Mitchell, Cord and Spark, Roxy Music, Avalon, Peter Gabriel, So,
Nice. Good
Vance
one.
Joy,
Vance Joy's good too. Yeah.
Tracy Chapman.
Tracy.
You know, oh, here's one of my favorites. So if you guys want, like, so have you guys ever seen the movie Crazy Heart? Love the soundtrack to Crazy Heart. One of my favorite soundtracks. And then if you guys want an interesting, like, should play completely awesome album, own it on vinyl, play it way too often, is the Mumford and Sons from Johannesburg.
Nice.
So it's with the Senegalese. There's the really famous Baba Ya Senegalese artist, and it's a collab between Mumford and Sons and Baba Ya. I'm saying it wrong, but
yeah,
you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. And then
so that's kind of what I play.
And I mean, I'm sure you have different headphones that you like too. So obviously you work with Zach to make the pendant for Zach, and so I'm sure you have a pair of ZMF headphones. What other headphones do you also like and listen to with some of your amps?
Can I pull them out for a second?
I love that, and I'm sure the group would love it as well. Grab them.
So I think I have a very special set. At least that's what Zach told me. I had to wait like everybody 4 months. I sent like love notes asking when my loved one was returning to me. So these are a set of Blackwood Verite closed.
Wow, those are
and
gorgeous.
That is not a lacquer finish on these. That's actually the color of the wood. They're just buffed out.
It's just like
it's triple black. Because if you guys see the poster in the back right here, let's see right there, Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Right. So going for the Johnny Cash look, black leather, black hardware.
I love it.
And then
blacked out
for ease of use, the Venus Audio headphone cables, which are Kinnair wire.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I think they're super reliable. They're super affordable. They work right, and they come in 15 feet, which means I can put the amp on the other side of the room, sit on my couch or on my floor.
That's what I noticed.
Feeling like I'm gonna choke somebody.
That's what I noticed. I need to do, because between using the Nautilus for speakers and where I moved it to, now I'm like, oh, but I got to drag another chair in here for when I do headphones, or I need to get some longer cords just to reach to my couch, and so I may take.
It's total magic if you do, though, because then you're treating it like it's a set of headphones, like a set of speakers. You're enjoying it in the same posture that you might.
Totally. It's the best way. It's the best way to enjoy headphones. I mean, a lot of us use it at our desk, but that's the real way to do it. Kick back and listen.
Get a nice kickback chair, relax. Yeah, agreed.
Quantum really loves the triple black.
Oh no, they're super 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 duper cool. My favorite though, which is still really surprising to most people though, is the iCAN is my absolute all-time favorite headphone.
Awesome.
It's not the last word in incisiveness, but it was the first headphone I had ever had that had real isolation. Like you could have people, I could be playing music really inappropriately loud. My wife could be this close to me, and she couldn't make out the rhythm section of what was being played. And that was just like astonishing, like that could happen. Yep, there we go. So pretty headphones in hands.
Well, these are my Blackwood Aeolus, so like not the same. They're nice. They're definitely nice, but they don't have that like ebony obsidian look that yours or so. A buddy of mine has a Blackwood Aeolus as well, and his are like yours, but the Aeolus, and I'm just like.
Those almost look like piano keys, piano key black.
Just
really
dark,
cool.
Yeah, beautiful.
Marcello, are you going to show off the prettiest pair of headphones I've ever seen?
I can go grab them. Would you like to see them? I will.
Yes.
All right, I'll go get them.
Yes, they are the prettiest. But so back to the question, like my top 4 headphones, the ether. So I would say the Verite closed, the icons are still like my absolute favorite, which everybody has a personal favorite. Ether 2s always make me feel like they are like I'm sitting like an F1 racer. They're super light. There's no flex, so if you press on, like I have big hands, like big mitts, and even if you press on them really hard, you can't feel any give in the headphone. And they're super, super, super fast, and I really love their construction and the thinking behind it and how fast they are. But I would say the Ether 1s are my favorite sounding. The Ether 2 though are just a tour de force as far as manufacturing technique. I have always had a set of Audeze LCD-2s. Moving up the food chain was never really. The 4s are super awesome. Like if you can afford the 4s, not the MZs. MZs are cool, but if you have the horsepower, the 4s are the right choice. But the 2C closed, so the classic 2C close, is as heavy as a brick, but super fun and super awesome. There they are. Those things, the stainless steel, right? With what kind of wood?
Desert ironwood, limited edition.
Can you put it closer so they can see the grain structure? Because that was just some next level when you get it close enough. Yeah, that thing is badass.
I am, enamored with the wood grain on these. And I mean, Zach, Zach always outdoes himself, but I just feel really lucky anytime I get to see anything he's ever made and be able to hold it and then listen to it. I mean, they're just exceptional. I mean, it's a heavier wood, so it is definitely more weighty than some of the other ones, but it's also one of the most beautiful woods I've ever seen on any headphone or even just in person for that matter. Gorgeous.
And that stainless steel almost looks like a polished titanium. It has a darker color.
Absolutely.
And then like every normal audiophile in personal audio, I have a set of 800Ss.
Fantastic headphones.
What's up, Resolve?
For their construction, for their speed, they do space really, really well in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of those reasons, I think they're really interesting and worth like playing. But what do I play most often? I play my iCANs, truthfully, the most often. Probably because they were like my first.
That's cool.
There's a
special
attachment there, right? There's a emotional attachment and everything else like that to it.
Yeah, I am looking forward.
Yeah, they were like I had Audezes before that. I'm sorry, what?
I was gonna say I'm sincerely looking forward to hearing those as well because after you told me that you said they're one of your favorites. I actually was also set to get a pair to review of the Atticus, but after I talked to you and you said they're your favorite, and I was like, you know what? I asked Zach, when you have a chance instead the Atticus, can I hear the iCAN instead? So off of your love for them, I actually asked to hear those next. So,
I mean, I can't speak for Zach, but like I think the Atticus with the whatever we call the plastic diaphragm, which is similar to like the same type of plastic that's used in the Sennheiser, is more accurate and percussive and more pistonic in its behavior. However, the iCAN in my mind is sort of like listening to a speaker with a 15-inch paper woofer. There's a fullness to the low end that both size and composition, material science of the woofer provides for it. It pairs really well with my amps. Also, like that and the Kenzie's a good time.
I'm a huge electronic music fan, as many of the people that know me already know, and so I'm not your typical audiophile. I listen to everything, not just classical music or jazz and stuff like that, but I do listen to classical music and jazz too. I love that, but I listen to a ton of electronic music, so I'm always searching for a dynamic driver headphone that can do electronic music in a way that is at least on par with some of the planar magnetic headphones that I've heard, especially from the lower bass frequencies. And based on what I've been reading and researching, the iCAN may have the ability to do that. I don't know, but I'm interested in checking it out for that. Probably one of the most selfish reasons, just for electronic music. So.
Oh, they can put the thump in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the
iCAN
Verte.
has some
They
lows.
have punch and they have great bass. And honestly, the Verte on the Nautilus, the bass is like it goes up a notch. Like just
Yeah.
I think I was talking to you and you said it's just packing so much steel. There's just so much steel that it just makes the Verte thump. So I can only imagine what even a more thumpy headphone would sound like. So I'm very, very excited to check it out.
It's that thump. The VC also, man. The VC is pretty bassy as a headphone. It's not V-shaped, but it definitely has. Which you have the Blackwoods, which are, I'm sure you've experienced that too. They have. It's just I think that they're a little more elevated in the bass and the treble, but it still has that magic mids that Zach's known for. So
yeah, Resolve said the same thing. He said I imagine the VC could do that as well. Yeah. I think the VC is a bit more punchy sounding, right? So
it's more punchy. I would say that's a better example of it. It's more punchy, whereas the icons would be more sub bassy and more of that traditional thump, I guess.
And Elnerick says he feels the bio drivers have more soul, which is pretty cool. That's a good way to describe it as well. And then Sleepy has the Atticus, and I know he's a huge fan of the Atticus and the Aeolus. So he says it's got girthy
Well,
mids.
I'll give you guys, if you guys are like interested in sort of like a pro audio version or a subwoofer analogy, the icon is like a 15-inch sub or an 18-inch sub, and the Verite is like with servos. It is more accurate and better behaved, but sometimes you want a little fuzz.
You want that
the
freaking
fuzz is additive.
Yeah, for electronic music,
Right.
give me that. Knock my head around a little bit. That's kind of sound. That's what I'm looking for. So yeah, that's cool.
Without the whistle actually like making a little bit of bleeding.
Yeah, we don't want bleeding. We don't want bleeding.
Here's a quick
No,
question.
you know the
for
whistle that goes like.
Yeah. Or the whistle and the tequila shot, and then the shaking of the head. I mean,
Is it that whistle, or is it this whistle?
That's no, it's you know the one where it's
it's
like
the piccolo, the piccolo whistle,
it's
the
like
piccolo.
and you
Piccolo.
pull out the
Yeah, pull out the
centerpiece
piccolo.
on it.
Yeah, it's piccolo. I believe it's piccolo whistle. Pretty sure it's piccolo. I could be wrong. Live chat can correct me.
You know we're gonna Google this later.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely gonna Google it. Actually, a quick question. Just like so, kind of a fun one. You have a pretty robust lineup. Like and they're all fantastic amps. So like for you, like there's something about synergy, right? What real quick, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but like for each of your amps, what would be like a paired headphone that you think would be a good pairing? Just for fun.
So,
I mean,
like,
not like
Kenzie-
serious.
Sure. Right, but I would say like the Kenzie is really amazing with the icon, but the Kenzie is also really amazing with like an 800 because it will humanize an 800 without having to modify it.
Which tubes are? Why I would only listen to my HC800 with tubes. That's the only way I listen to them.
Right, so like I think that the Kenzie is really amazing with that. Also, like I had a customer who had a Kenzie, like one of the original Kenzies that had a 600 ohm output impedance, and so I told him go buy a set of used Buyers, and that's actually because some of the older Kenzies had 600 ohm and 32 ohm taps, and so if you have a 600 ohm Buyers, you can get those like for a steal on eBay right now, and that's an amazingly good headphone. And the same thing to be said for an Encore. Like those two kind of go hand in hand. The Mogwai OG, I would say like Dan Clark's Ether 2s or Ether Closed, super great pairings. So if you want the horsepower, if you're reaching, like those will actually take a lot more power than we give, than is normally thought of. So I tend to think like the Mogwai is the Mogwai OG. You can bring a lot of power to the game at a really reasonable price, and that's a nice thing to do. As well as also like if you had some Grados, some
flesh out that
woodcut
highs,
Grados,
bring them down.
because like those need a little bit of humanization as well, If you went up to the Mogwai SE, right? So now you're like, 8 ohm 32-300, it's like any of Zach's headphones, great pairings because you have a 300 ohm tap, which I think actually sounds the best when I use Zach's headphones. But then it's like, no, I want big power, and let me bring in an HE6 or the Sundara. Like I think the Sundara is a really interesting headphone if you have enough power.
Susvara? Are you saying the Susvara? You mean Susvara?
Sundara. No, the Sundara.
Sundar? Oh.
Yeah, the Sundar is the. I think it dropped down to like $300 something dollars recently. It has like really cool like chain link fence looking grill.
What's the one that's super inefficient though? Is it the?
Well, most of them are, but the Susvara is notoriously HE6 is probably the most inefficient, and then the H1000 is pretty gnarly inefficient too.
So the Sundara is also not terribly efficient. So like the Mogwai SE with KT88s will power the Mr. Speaker Ethers, Ether 2s, the Sundaras really easily. But then what's nice about the Mogwai SE or even the Mogwai is you change the power tubes to throttle it down. So if you instead of KT88s you put in 6L6s, and instead of a 5A or a 4 rectifier you put in a 5U4 rectifier. You can go from having 5-6 watts to 3 watts, and so you're in a better power range for specified headphones.
Here's
something to know for all the headphones or for all the amps. The bigger the output transformer, the more intimacy and the bigger the bass slam. And so the Mogwai, Encore, and Kenzie all use the same size output transformer. So if you're asking me, I would say, it's like a personal preference question between those 3 amps. They're each going to do different things. They're going to have different strengths, but at their core, they're probably at parity. But the SE is a step above. The output transformer is twice the size of the Kenzie, the Encore, or the Mogwai OG. And then the Nautilus, Bigger Ben, and Ovation are twice the size of the SE, meaning 4 times the size of the Kenzie output transformer.
Oh, wow. So you're just putting more iron. You're dumping iron in there.
I'm not very inventive. I agree. Like I'm not going to the kitchen and finding a different cookbook. I'm just using the ingredients.
That's
putting bigger ingredients in, if you will.
I like it. I dig it.
It's like saying a 327, a 350, and a 383. What are the differences? Stroke and piston width. Stroke and
power.
More stroke.
Yeah, man. I dig it.
The 327 is an interesting motor, but a 383 is a much more interesting motor.
Another great question, a fun one too. What's your favorite drink pairing with music? Let's see. It says, what are Justin's favorite drink pairings for his different amps? Good one, Sleepy.
Ooh, I like it. Sleepy, like it.
Well, I will. So I don't know if you guys know, but I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker. That's what I do full time. And I deal with people with severe mental health issues, and I talk to people about alcohol recovery all the time, especially in the hospital. And so sometimes I'll cross my arms like this, and I consider it like a Rorschach while I'm talking to somebody. Because if they can figure it out, and like 1 in every 50 people go, what the and they start, why are you lecturing me? And I'm sorry, it's this arm. Because it's the Johnny Walker.
Yeah, that's the first thing I saw. I was like, wait a minute.
So, I'm a big fan of Johnny Walker and Mexican Coke and lime. That's my drink of choice.
Ooh, that's big. Yeah.
Johnny Walker is it's a mid-tier smokiness, if you're asking my sense of things. So adding the Mexican Coke with the cane sugar kind of gives it a little bit more dimension, but also mellows it out. And then the lime gives you something to cut it with.
Mm-hmm.
So, give me a highball with, I have the Death Star ice cubes. Have you guys seen where the ice pieces? And you freeze it, and then it looks like you have a Death Star in your cup.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty awesome.
So I take the Death Star, some Johnny Walker, and Mexican Coke. That's my drink. And I think that so our wood chassis are American walnut, otherwise known as Eastern walnut and ebony. So it's meant to be sort of an American aesthetic. And I think sort of the drink choice, though it's Scotch still, I know I could be lectured bourbon versus Scotches. But I think that that's sort of, brown liquor and these amps make a lot of sense.
Yes.
What about you, Tyler? What's your favorite?
I'm a whiskey guy for sure, but I'm usually, so what I usually do is I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty, not that I'm lazy, but I mean I just do straight up. Usually when I'm drinking, I usually just pour some whiskey into a glass and that's it and go. On occasion, I'll do some mixed cocktails. I have my own little. I'm a big fan of bourbon and ginger beer, and like the Australian ginger beer, like they really like so Bundaberg or even some of like the locally made ginger beers, that kind of stuff. Some of the classic, like where they use cane sugar, they don't use like the fake sugar, that kind of. Another one I really like to drink. I'm a big fan of the Big Lebowski, so I drink a lot of White Russians on occasion. Another favorite of mine is the Dark and Stormy, and actually another really fun one that I like to drink. It's kind of random. I'm a big fan of old fashioned root beer, like the traditional sarsaparilla or cream soda, like the really old school like root beers, that kind of thing. And so I'll do bourbon and root beer. It's like sweet on sweet, but it's pretty fantastic. And also that's those are some of my favorites. Let's see. Also, like I said, the Dark and Stormy, big fan of that. Tonight I was drinking a little bit of tiki. I did Kraken dark rum with some coconut and pineapple juice. And then now I'm drinking, of all things, I'm drinking Kraken and root beer from a local root beer maker here in my town. And then I'll probably switch out to, since I'm drinking rum, I started with rum, so I'm going to finish with rum. So I'm going to probably finish with this little. This is a guilty pleasure of mine. Let's focus. There it is. Basically, it's horchata, but with rum. So if you ever had horchata at
That's awesome.
Dude, it's so delicious too. It tastes just like horchata, but it's boozy horchata is what this is. It's literally boozy horchata. It's like $15. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. So if you like horchata, rum chata, it's boozy horchata. So yeah. And it tastes fantastic.
Another really great.
That's something to actually look for.
Yeah, it's cheap too, so can't go wrong.
Another great question from BP. I don't think he's on the stream with us live. I think he's going to catch it after, but it's a question he wanted to ask. What's in store for 2021 for AmpsandSound and you, Justin?
I hadn't. So I've had some new ideas lately, which is always a bad idea because they're expensive. New ideas are expensive ideas. It's
always
a new adage. So the Sulio Mono is probably going to get discontinued unless we believe in sort of the Toyota method of manufacturing, so it's mostly build to order, except for things that come in the metal chassis, because they require such a massive lead time for metal work and finishing. So all of our stuff, we build with the least amount of inventory that we can keep in-house, because inventory takes up space like nobody's business. Absolutely. And so you can't have as many different products as we do, which, like 6 months will go by and someone won't get one thing, and then all of a sudden 5 people want the same thing. So trying to support that idea. Mm-hmm. So I think that the Sulio Mono with headphone option is probably going to get discontinued at some point, because the Y cable idea, people find it clunky, even though it works well. It's sort of a compromise solution, which is really kind of what the Nautilus was sort of the Sulio Mono or the Lilu Monos, which are all on turret boards, but taking it to the Mogwai circuit, right? And you needed space to do that. And so no one wanted a Y cable. The 2 chassis idea, I think, for monoblock idea for personal audio is, I was mistaken in doing it, and I think it doesn't fit most people's needs. And so having a bigger chassis that fits most people's needs was was the idea. So we have a 2-channel version of the Sulio monos that we'll release, probably give it a different name. If somebody wanted it still for headphones, we'd probably still do it. But the 2-channel version is really dear to my heart because I use really high efficiency speakers and I don't need more than a watt. And so it's the same sort of turret board construction, but it looks like a Kenzie. So it comes in a Kenzie size. It sits on top of the amp. It's super cute, like a little bud, and you want to squeeze the little life out of it.
Give me.
Come here, you little cutie.
So little tiny box, huge transformers. And then we have got the metalwork back for what we're calling our Bryce amp. So Zion and Bryce are next to each other. And the Bryce is sort of taking a Nautilus and cutting it into half and turning it into mono blocks for 2-channel.
Interesting.
And what we did though is instead of cathode biasing it, we went to fixed adjustable or fixed. You could call it adjustable, but it's a fixed bias that you can change so that you'll be able to run KT120s or KT88s, and we're going for horsepower. So it's
fantastic.
Probably single-ended, so one rectifier, one input tube, and one KT120 or KT88, and putting out between like 12 and 16 watts, which is not a lot, but it's sort of in that moderate power range. Where single-ended amps start falling down, don't have enough power, you can use more stubborn speakers. That way,
those damn stubborn speakers.
So it's sort of dimensionally, sort of like a 40% smaller version of a Nautilus, heavier than all get out. The power transformer is just insane. And I'm going to revisit doing a 300B amp sometime next year, probably.
Oh, interesting.
Because people,
especially with the new 300Bs have been popping up recently, but they're expensive, man.
So if someone, let me back into this. I could do, if I did it on a circuit board, we could still do a 2A3 or a 300B based on what we already have developed. I would work on implementation, just doing it differently. Maybe bringing it onto the metal chassis so I have more space and separation and isolation, which would make me happy. Would make everybody else happy too, because we did it in Agartha, and for headphones, there was some microphonics because the filaments in a 300B are really, really long. And if you don't have them cushioned, isolated in some manner, you just need more. You need more mechanical isolation. So going to a metal chassis is a brute force attempt at mechanical isolation. So I don't know if it'll be a 300B or if it'll be 2A3, or if I'm feeling really inventive, making it interchangeable is the goal.
That'd be kind of cool. That'd be interesting.
But it might be looking like a Nautilus that has 300Bs or 2A3s as one might desire.
Very cool.
So like a retooled Nautilus chassis for 300Bs. That is the thinking. And not on a circuit board. Like if I was doing it, it probably wouldn't be on a circuit board. It'd literally be like a Nautilus. But instead of the KT88s, we're talking about 300Bs or 2A3s popping through.
I like it.
So that is only napkin math concept.
Sure, but could
the other
happen.
Two are actually. Well, the other two are like one is sitting in a Pelican case right now, like 10 feet away from me. If you guys want, I will just go show you if you're interested.
Yeah, always, please.
I'll go grab the Sulio and just kind of show it. And then the metalworks in the garage. I can't show you that, but those two are like 60 days from being releasable, but they won't be released because we're in the time of cholera. We need the time of cholera to end a little.
Yeah.
Before, like I'm getting my vaccine on Tuesday, thank goodness.
Are you guys enjoying this stream? If you are, smash that like button, man. What are you guys waiting for? We've got over 40 people on here at one given point. We only got 11 likes. Come on, help some brothers out. Show some love. We got a coupon coming up for you guys here very shortly to save you some money as well. Smash the like button for that too.
First time ever.
First time,
first time ever.
And he's doing it
fun.
for all the viewers
AmpsandSound.
of this stream. So, show some love. Smash that like button.
So this is a Kenzie mono. So if you see how big this is, the output.
Yeah.
This is the. Wait, hold on a second. This one in my finger. Let's see it this way. This is the output transformer, which is the same size. Same size as the Mogwai SC. So for a 1 watt amp, it's got a 10 watt transformer because why not?
Reasons.
Everybody needs a silly reason to do something. So, and it's built the same way as the Nautilus and all the others. So it's all turret board. It's done the old way, and I think kind of the better way. It's not. It's so labor intensive price wise, it becomes prohibitive. We started AmpsandSound by saying it's hi-fi for every day. When I started the hobby, I couldn't afford really nice equipment. I could build pretty good equipment, nice equipment, but not really nice equipment. And so we try really hard because this is not the day job. This is the dream job. So we try really hard to make it democratizable, in that most people can participate if they want to. So it's not prices that are intended to really hurt people, and it's a product that will last an awful long time. The goal is that it outlives me.
It's a legacy of some sort outside of your family.
I love that. I mean, I think that's huge, right? For me, that's huge, and I'll tell you why. Like, as a dad that has a daughter, right? I mean, not that you can't do all the same things with a girl, like fishing or hunting or whatever you might be into, that you would do with a boy, you could do with a girl. But I will tell you, what drew me into the headphone hobby in the first place was the fact that my daughter was born. And when she was born, I had to start listening to headphones because her room was right next door to mine. And she loves music. So anything that can be built and last a lifetime can be handed down generation to generation to generation. And I just love that. That's one of the things I love about AmpsandSound. It's one of the things I love about ZMF. Sorry, I just had to get that in there real quick.
Heirloom. It's like the heirloom
thing for show and tell.
Yeah, bring it.
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, of course.
So I did a slight retooling of the Kenzie. So this is one that's going to be going to headphones for review. So I put it in the matte black.
Resolve. Speaking of
Transformers matte black. Right.
Nice.
It's going to ship out tomorrow.
Resolve. That's coming to you, buddy.
Chunky feet.
Wow, those are chunky.
And so if
you want, you can send it to me first, and then I can just ship it to him. I mean, it's up to you.
You guys can decide. Just tell me where to send it. I'm okay with it.
I'm teasing. Send it to Resolve first, man.
Resolve will get upset. You'll have to run over to Terran and steal some more gear.
I went for the slightly more, sort of a more modern look. They come traditionally in the walnut casework, but I was digging on black.
You know what that reminds me of?
Kind of a more modern look at it.
I love it.
You know what that reminds me of, my man, Justin? It reminds me of John Wick. It reminds me of like a John Wick movie. You know what I mean? Like I could see that like in the background of a John Wick movie with a LP playing or something like that. Yeah. And that's like I could see that. It's sexy, man. I like it.
A lot of my gear has actually been in Hollywood commercials.
That's cool.
So
that's actually cool. Really dope.
Well, yeah, because you're based in SoCal, so that's cool.
That thing's fire, man.
That's
beautiful.
The thing to know about these.
Go ahead, Justin.
These tubes are 70 years old at least.
Wow.
And they're so expensive. They're $15 each.
Yeah.
So you can retube. The input tube is $5, and the output tubes are $15. So for $35 to $45 total, you can retube the whole amp with tubes that are
fantastic.
50 and 70 years old. These were used in radar installations in World War II.
That's so dope. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've actually pulled those out of like if I knew now what I knew back when I was in the military. I've pulled tubes like that out of gear to like get ready to like just like to move out and like remove. And now I'm like, damn it! If only I knew. But, yeah.
Okay, so another question I had for you. It's kind of, I should probably turn on my lights when I'm talking, huh? But the tube amp looks so much better. So what was...
Lick your fingers and touch them. We're going to remove your
You know,
fingerprints.
so this is kind of funny. I was doing this earlier. I was warming my hands because whenever I stream, I'm an audiophile. I'm trying to give you guys the best audio possible. I turn off AC or heat. So in summer months, I'm not gonna run any AC because, I want to deliver the sound. So right now my heat's off and it's cold in northern Nevada right now, chilly. So I'm just warming my hands by the sweet Nautilus fire. Anyway, so for Justin, this is another get to know you question.
Wait, one quick thing though.
Yeah.
Without fail, almost always you will find somebody who will go and touch. I have like one of these amps in my office. I have a Mogwai OG in my office, and without fail, I'll have somebody walk into my office and go, "Is that a tube amp?" and touch it.
Oh no!
What?
Yeah, that's just.
So a lot of my colleagues have lost fingerprints.
That's crazy. Well, some people would like to lose their fingerprints, but maybe that's one way to do it. Okay, here's a question. This is one that it's about you question. So, what was the first moment in your life where music, you heard it and you just truly got sucked in? Was there a certain song? Was it a certain concert? What was that moment in your life?
So it's gonna sound really unsexy. So I'll give you the really unsexy answer, and then I'll give you the more magical audiophile answer.
Love it.
So, growing up in my room, which I shared with my brothers, or with my brother at the time, I had the Awia integrated stereos that we all had, growing up in the 90s.
Absolutely. I definitely had one of those. That's when I first started to learn how to play with treble and all the little silly things that they offered. Yes, absolutely.
And so in LA, there's a radio station called KNX. It's the KNX News Hour. It's a AM FM station. And I learned, I think my brother showed it to me, but they had the 50s radio shows. And so all through high school, middle school, from 9 to 10 o'clock at night, was the 50s radio shows, like the Long Ranger and all of these Dragnet. And so my first, real enjoyment as an audiophile was actually was listening to radio shows, the drama hour, I think is what they called it on KNX, from 9 to 10 o'clock at night while going to sleep, on my Awia stereo, like 6 inches from my head kind of thing.
Yeah. I used to love mine too. That's funny.
And you open it up and the most chintzy ass wires going into the back of the speaker, and the use of an RCA connector for the speaker connector.
Terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I used to crank that, open my windows, and play all kinds of like soundtrack, like the Dazed and Confused soundtrack when I was growing up. I love that.
It's what we do when we're rebellious a-hole kids. And that was one of my memories, was battling my stepmom with bass.
That's funny.
With those type of things.
I think I went through that too. I got an electric guitar, and I really went through that phase as well. And I just would jam that electric guitar when I was in high school, like in the whammy bar. I was all through the house. I'd make sure my door was and my dad would be like, Italian. I'm like, oh shit! Close the door. Put the guitar away. Climb out the window.
Under the bed.
Yeah. Sorry. So what's the sexy audiophile answer?
Well, I'll tell you that the less sexy was like playing Doom using a BGW 750. So if you guys remember BGW.
Yeah.
So I had a BGW 750, and I had these realistics that were. I mean, I fried the voice coil so quick on those realistics. Playing Doom, but it was pretty awesome to play Doom. With that much stupid MOSFET power.
Yeah.
No, the first real. So like the Magnepans were super cool. They were the 3.2 Rs, so they're the size of a door, But the first time I heard like a really cool system, aside from the Maggies, so one of our neighbors had a set of Chartwell LS3 5As, which are the traditional BBC monitor. Chartwell was one of the licensed builders of the BBC studio monitor specification 35A. And so it was a Bryce Power Amp, like one of the old school original Brystons, like the 2B kind of thing, with the Chartwells and this massive 3 cubic foot sub. I think it was like only a 12-inch or 10-inch sub. Yeah, so the sub was huge, but these Chartwells were like just magic. And this guy had, he was a professor at USC, and he had just the most amazing classical music collection. And I wasn't like big, like I was versed in classical music, but classical music isn't really interesting in my opinion unless someone is like a true connoisseur and curates that. Like, how like if you go into restaurants or you go into a club and you hear someone DJ something, it's like, oh my God, that track on that album is the coolest thing since sliced bread. When you get someone to do that with classical music that says like this passage, this track on this album is the thing to be known kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard Pablo Casals on that, and then it went into this whole like who's Pablo Casals, and Pablo Casals versus Yo-Yo, and this whole big like interesting argument. But the Chartwells just image so well, and these things die at like 100 hertz. I've heard Fostech full range drivers that went lower. But then he had this huge sub, and he had a big room, and you're sitting, 10 feet from these little micro monitors, and then a huge sub on a comfortable couch with somebody playing music blowing your mind was a cool experience.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Bill. The change from mono to stereo vinyl was a huge change. Yeah, that's Bill I was talking about earlier, who was got to hear the Nautilus, so that's cool.
Well, I would say like if you want to hear classical, you might want to hear it in mono. A lot of better. It's why people sometimes collect 78s. The first 3 Nautiluses had the nameplate, which is sort of our traditional logos, our nameplate, both vertical, like on where the tube was, like on the top, and then on the front, because like when you slide into a rack, you can only see one way. Like if you're looking straight at it, you can see the nameplate, but then when you stand up, you see the nameplate. And I like that idea, and then the feedback I got from people was like, yeah, but that's too much. And so the logo is actually a line-drawn version of a 1626 triode, which is what's used in the Kenzie. Mm-hmm. So that became our secondary logo.
I think it looks fantastic. I love it, man. I think it looks it's a great emblem. It looks dope as all get out.
I like it too.
I want a decal of that.
Tattoo.
Oh, that'd be a sick tattoo, actually.
At some point, so I've talked to my wife about not doing any more tattoos. But I'll show you guys. Let's see. So
there you go.
When you do your best work on the dark side.
I'm with you.
So it's Lego Vader.
That's awesome.
Excellent. I love it. Hey, I'm my Nintendo sleeves over here, so.
But I'm probably going to put that tube logo on my sleeve at some point.
Yeah.
It's just it's a subtle. It is meant to be understated. Mm-hmm. I try for like when I build my own speakers, they're always in black. Mm-hmm. I try pretty hard for understated. I don't like for gaudy. Audio shows so I generally start drinking at an audio show about 2:00. So I get a break, go get a sandwich, come back with a drink and a sandwich. But the most fun I have at audio shows is because it always ends with a steak, béarnaise sauce, and a good drink or two, and great friends.
Yeah.
So like every night it's a steakhouse because cows should be sacrificed. No, if you're Hindu, I understand that would be total respect, but dead cows are my friends.
A good steak is very delicious. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to the chat because we're approaching the about hour and a half mark, and I want to hit up the chat and see, do you guys have any questions for Justin? And then we're gonna hit you with that savings code too here in a moment. But let's get any questions in for Justin because we're getting closer to.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, go for it, of course.
So, I try really hard to be accessible. I'm dyslexic as the day is long, and so, hey, sweetheart, do you want to say hi? Do you want to say hi to the internet? My daughter Kenzie is offering me candy. You will always get a more complete, nuanced answer if you call me. And so on the site, everywhere, you can email me, but if it includes more than 2 questions, I'm going to ask you to call me, because I would rather have a conversation and give you a real thoughtful answer than giving you a curt, direct answer that asks the question. Because almost always when someone asks a question, there are other things that you want to tell them that are not included in the question or the answer.
Nuance.
Or they think of, like, after they email you like 2 questions, and then they think of like 3 more, and then it's just like, what, you could have just handled it all in one quick phone call.
Well, I mean, but I legitimately want people to sort of, like, I have a school of thought, and people who want to buy things from me typically either don't know about the school of thought and want to learn about it, or want to patronize because they believe in those same sort of principles, and I want to share in that, you know. It's just harder to convey those messages or thoughts via email. Seriously, spell check does not pick up half of the things that I write, because I spell phonetically, and it just goes boogers. I get asked all the time, where were you born?
Boogers. Fair.
I'm gonna ping the
anyway,
chat.
Long story short, I'd love to help people. Call me. I try to help.
And I can vouch for this, by the way. I know plenty of people, and I've talked to you too, but like all the people in like SRAF constantly say how awesome it is to just call and chat with you. So I can vouch for that.
I actually saw that
awesome.
I saw that on Headphone the other day as well too. Somebody else. In fact, somebody that bought, I think, a Big Ben after the last stream we did, said something. I don't know if he made it tonight, but I know he wants to come and check it on the rewind. And he said you were just fantastic to talk to on the phone, and you walked him through everything. And that's kind of rare. You don't find that very often in today's world. So I think that a lot of audiophiles will appreciate that very much so if they can call you and talk to you. So
well, I know, like, go on. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna drop the code into the chat. How long is that coupon code good for?
So most of what we build goes into the cost of the actual product. So that's the great thing. Our margins are not significant multipliers like they would be with big companies. I mean, like, you know, less than 2%, less than a 2-fold multiplier. So the code is only good till Monday, because the idea is it's not for a looky-loo, and it's not for somebody casually wanting to buy. It's for somebody who wants to buy, and I want to make it easier for them to buy. You know, so it's sort of my gift, or my thinking of, like, to participate with people who needed a little extra support. I mean, we're in hard times, and if I can make it easier for people, I would like to be able to.
I love that. I think that's huge, and I think that everybody interested in purchasing an amp, one of your amps, and watching this stream right now appreciates it. And I know I appreciate you doing it for our friends and audio buddies. That some of them are on here live now, and some will catch it on the rewind. And I'll also share that code. So I'm going to share it now in the chat, and it's holiday, correct? All capitalized. And then
yep.
It's good for 10%.
I'm really inventive. Can you tell?
I mean, that's perfect. It's perfect, and it's good for 10% off, correct, on anything on the site. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
So any amp. So the black boxes that we build. So we build these kind of special boxes that do different things for people. Those are pretty low margin products. So they're not for the black boxes, but for any amp. So from a Zion to a Nautilus to a Kenzie, it's 10% off.
Boom! I just dropped it right here in the middle of the stream. Hopefully I didn't misspell anything.
I will say, if I can just sort of interject one other, you know, I think that most people who participate like in these streams want to know the company and the thinking. The other thing to also know is that we're like a 3-person shop in what we build. We build a lot for 3 people. It's rather impressive, the quantity that we do. But if you look at manufacturers like ZMF, even ZMF, Dan Clark, AmpsandSound, Deckware, Shit Audio. These are all companies that actually manufacture their products here in the U.S. There are companies, I didn't know this till 2020. I mean, I kind of guessed it, didn't know it, that third-party manufacturing to larger companies. I think that is an interesting idea, but it is not what those companies nor what we do. We build what we sell. We design what we build. And I think that participation or supporting any of those type of companies is really supporting the cottage industry that is personal audio and hi-fi audio.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love it. We had a question from
Yeah,
Bill.
It's not some faceless manufacturing facility.
Yeah, exactly. How many on your team? How many did you say you have on your team about, approximately? 3? So that's true.
Me, my technician, my wood guy.
That's awesome.
My wife.
That's awesome.
My wife is.
My wife. I say, where's your wife?
Your wife.
You've got 4. And your daughter. She helps her with.
My wife and Shopify would be a great partner. Shopify is pretty awesome, but they're a headless beast. So.
And then I had a question from Bill. What is your favorite DAC to pair with a Nautilus when you listen? Do you have a preferred DAC that you enjoy with a Nautilus?
Actually, just in general. Like,
or just in general,
in general, too, yeah.
So I have a DCS DAC for my own. You know, it was my gift to myself.
Bartok?
But no.
Stop it!
No, I didn't. There's many different ways to answer something. I wasn't ready for that to be.
Sorry, I effed it up. I'm sorry.
No, I have a Rosini, but I also have a Yigi, and they're
nice.
Both my Yigi. Then I have a really nice renderer as well, and so that it helps me get the very best out of the Yigi. I think that they're both really amazing DACs. I really like shit DACs as far as just being a democratized, accessible.
Shitty DACs, yeah.
No. I mean, like, Jason's fucking smart. Excuse my language.
I'm joking.
No, he's being sarcastic because shit DACs are awesome.
No. I know that, but I meant I just like, his lineage of thought when it comes to digital signal processing is so vast and experienced. Now, you may not like all his decisions. I can't say I like all his decisions, but like he's a smart son of a gun. And I think like the Yigi
Sunny Beach
for the 95 to 98% of people, the Yigi is the right answer. I would say the RME, but here I have a fundamental problem with the RME. So like, I love my I love my Rosini. Like the Rosini's, if you can afford it, the very best answer. And then second to that is the Bartok. The shit is the accessible everyday, like it's the best high end that is accessible without fluff on it. The RME is completely at that same level. It does so many things right. It does one thing wrong, and I can't live with it for the one thing wrong. It's got a wall wart. I hate wall warts.
The wall rule.
Right, the wall wart rule. I can't do the wall wart.
Well, the other thing about the RME that's gnarly is like I did a quick back-to-back shootout with the RME versus the Bifrost versus the D90 from Topping, and the Bifrost beat all of them, like bar none. Like it spanked the poo out of both of them. And I think what the RME does fantastic. It's not. I mean, the DAC is good. The amp is okay. The amp is fantastic with IEMs. But what it does, it has this beautiful little meter right here. Wait, where's that? Where's the meter? There's a meter. Mm-hmm. And it looks fantastic. It's beautiful. Oh, and it does EQ really well if you're into EQ. I'm not really. I just like looking at the little dials pop up.
Oh, it does so many things right. I mean, like it's a Swiss Army knife, but the wall work kills me.
Yeah.
I I really like the Mytek Brooklyn Bridge because it has Ethernet in, because I'm a Roon guy at this point. And so it's Ethernet in, balanced out, super, so it's a Swiss Army knife at a really great price, really, really, really dig that. I have used some Art DACs that are good. I don't think that they're there yet as a technology. The topping, though, because I tend to be like this value conscious person. That's why I think the shit Yigi is like such a cat's ass, because it hits that value point so well, and it's so purist in its conceptualization. The topping, though, for anybody buying a DAC for like the first time, is such an overachiever because it does MQA, and it'll do 768. So if you hook it up to a Raspberry Pi and tell Roon to oversample, it's oversampling to 768, like natively, like no muss, no fuss. Those are all. So, but from a purist approach, if you're asking me, like, I like the Bifrost, I love the Yigi. No, the transformers are oversized for what the output of the Kenzie is, and so it's got really good bandwidth. However, it's a mid-range centric sound, and it's got a slightly over full lower mid-range register, so it's going to make you feel like you have a little bit more bass than you think you should, or that it's power that you might convey. So you're going to listen to your headphones like, wow, it's got better bass than I thought these headphones should have. And it's euphonic, it's not strident at all. It's still got good high frequency extension, but with any single-ended design, especially with no feedback, it's going to have some high frequency roll off, but in the sense of feeling natural, but not fatiguing. So like a really good time is like a Sennheiser 6XX in the Kenzie, or an iCAN and the Kenzie. That's a
Probably
that's a good time
the
pairing.
Aeolus too. I would imagine the Aeolus would probably play well with that also.
Mm-hmm.
So Sleepy, that might be one you might like, actually, judging on what I know from Sleepy's sonic preferences. That sounds like it could be something he would be interested in hearing for sure.
Solid state rectification, in theory, for measured noise floor should be quieter, unless you're looking at sort of like infrasonic noise, because the switching of the diodes you can pick that up, especially with headphones, if you're not careful. I like tube rectification because I think it is a more tried and true old school approach, whereas solid state rectification is super simple to implement. It's two diodes, it's not rocket science. It is the only acceptable compromise that we use. We don't use any silicon unless it's a diode, and it's the only thing that we're willing to do. And we sort of do it on the amps, the more entry level products, because it lowers the production cost, it simplifies the product, and makes it easier for people to use. I think that from a solid state, if we're talking about sonics now, they're faster. They have a faster transient rise time, so the attack is going to seem better with a solid state rectified tube amp than a tube rectified. However, the sustain is going to sound, or the decay from the sustain is going to seem more realistic with a tube rectified power supply. In addition, with tube rectified power supplies, you can choose how much voltage sag that you want. So if it's tube rectified, you could put in a solid state equivalent plug-in. Lots of companies make them, like Weber Copper Caps does. Or like, as an example, a 5U4 is going to have more voltage drop. It's going to give a wetter sound, give more sustain, more color. So like if you were futzing with color on a TV and wanted to make things more vivid, a 5U4 might make it feel more vivid. Whereas if you wanted a more forward lean, faster attack, you would go with a 5AR4, or more powerful as well. So I think having the socket for tube rectified system, tube rectification is more versatile. I think solid state is faster and simpler, but tubes add depth and tonality that is worth the sacrifice of speed, typically.
Perfect.
If I wanted fast, I'd buy a Class D amp.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have one more time for one more question. Tyler, you go first. I think you had something to say, and then I'm going to take one more
All
question.
I would say is I would have responded with solid state, fast, tubes, magic.
So
that's probably the best answer.
Yeah, I mean, they are. I mean, they are magic. So BP actually made it onto the stream. Good to see you, brother. A lot of the questions I asked tonight were sent over from BP, so I wanted to get him some time to ask here on the stream. He would like to have you talk just a bit about your use of input transformers, just a little bit.
Sure. So from an objective measured standpoint, input transformers introduce noise. Because transformers will introduce noise in general. However, input transformers, though, generate a new audio ground so that if you have various inputs, all a little different with their grounding plane, that which comes into the amp becomes a unified grounding plane through the input transformer. That's why you do it in Pro Audio. Why I like them, though, is that more and more in personal audio, we use digital sources because they're compact and versatile and super awesome. And digital sources very often have a high frequency hash that is problematic to our ears. It's something that you can't say, oh, it's in this frequency range, but it's almost like you can feel it. A graininess to things at times. And input transformers tend to strip that away, like a combing effect, so that because they're input limiting devices, 20 to 20 is what they're designed for, very typically. So that if something comes in well outside that range, it will clip it out. So like 100 hertz spike somewhere can't get through at the same level that it would if the transformer wasn't there. Subjectively, so I said objectively, it will introduce distortion, but the distortion is pleasing the human ears. Subjectively, you say there's greater separation, there's greater bass articulation in the lower registers. The mid-range is has more layers to it, and there's more articulation in that. So in one of the audio shows, we wired up a Mogwai SC, no input transformers, and we had like 25 people listen to it, and 21 people preferred input transformers.
Makes sense. Go with what the people like.
Yeah.
Right. We used to do the Mogwai SC where it was like no input transformers, but then we got feedback from people that said, no, I paid for this. I want access to
roll it.
I want the benefits of input transformers on both of my inputs, which I understood. I mean, there's arguments for pro and con, but ultimately that's how we wire it up at this point, because it's this added benefit, and though it is more versatile to do it interchangeably, most people, almost all people, when they hear the differences, A, being them, prefer the input transformers in circuit, and so they're included.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, we're like at 2 hours. I thought we were going to go like an hour, and here we are at 2 hours again, which is, I mean, it's easy to do when you're having fun, and this has been a fantastic stream. I just want to thank Justin for coming on. I'm pretty confident this won't be the last time we do this. I'm sure we're going to be streaming again very soon.
I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would love to have you on again with us for sure. And thanks to everybody out there in the chat. You guys have been fantastic. Remember, that coupon is good until Monday for 10% off. It's holiday, all caps, for any amp on the website right now. So if you're interested in an AmpsandSound amplifier, get over there, get on the site, and pick your favorite one. So you got till Monday to save that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. We're going to be doing more streaming like this, as well as tons of audio reviews and entertainment technology. And hopefully you enjoyed what you saw here today, and we hope to see you all again very soon. If we don't stream again before the holidays, happy holidays to everybody. Have a safe one. Be with your family, be with your friends. Stay safe out there, stay healthy, and as always,
Love your daughters.
much love, much love. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.